we have the analysts in to analyze. Would love to get your thoughts as well. So join us. Let us know what your thoughts are. The WhatsApp number is 0809 444 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981. And we're streaming live on our YouTube channel. That's Smooth981 on YouTube. You can subscribe. You can also post a comment underneath that live stream as well. But the analysts are in this morning. It's Lakunle, Yusuf, and Devoe Okorie. Good morning, Lakunle. Good morning, Devoe. Welcome.
Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, everywhere else where you're airing us this morning. And if you're in Lagos, please join me in the expectation of the bills from the mechanics for fixing the damages the floods of yesterday caused us.
Well, morning, Lagos. Morning, world. Zibby, Lakunle, cool traffic at Ivido.
Okay, well, let's start off with the headline coming from Vanguard. FEC approves $1.442 million for ammunition and 1.99 billion CNG vehicles for the NDLEA.
Right. Literally, this shouldn't be an article, but it's been reported the decisions that take place within the Federal Executive Cabinet, which is where many Nigerians should pay attention to, because that is where the fiscal plan is being marshaled and is being deliberated. And this administration had promised renewed hope in various sectors. So what we're expecting is the 27-point-something trillion naira budget. The little we have, we expect that it will be put into areas with the most impact. So in this issue, the Attorney General, Lateef Fagbemi, was disclosing after the meeting that about 1.9 billion, okay? Or let's start with the dollar remuneration, about $1.4 million, which comes to roughly about 2 billion naira, was approved for the procurement of ammunition for the NDLEA, okay? As well as 1.9 billion, that's another 2 billion that was approved for the purchase of 33 Milano CNG vehicles for the Anti-Narcotic Agency. And also what was approved for them was 2 body scanners at the Lagos and Abuja international airports at the cost of about 985 million, which is another billion. So roughly about 5 billion naira was earmarked for the NDLEA. Now, obviously, you know, the NDLEA has been working tirelessly, and would I say they've been effective? They have been effective given the amount of support that they've been given. But we all know, unfortunately, that the drug menace in Nigeria is far larger than even the NDLEA can tackle. So if you read the papers, you would see that they're always catching people on a daily basis. And literally, it is about time that this drug war is taken beyond even the agency of the NDLEA and taken as a national emergency crisis. Because for a country with a large population like Nigeria with 200 million, and then a youth population of about over 75%, which is about 150 million youths between the ages of 15 and 40, it's unconscionable for us to play a blind eye to the menace of what drug is doing within our society. Nigeria, that used to be only a drug routing nation back in the military days, due to the capital punishment that was on ground and was removed, has now become a drug-infested nation. Now, even with the little that is being approved for them, my only concern, yes, they would require the vehicles, especially when they're trying to take on some of these drug barons. They will require also the ammunition, because if you know drug business, just like the way you see it in films, drug barons do not take lightly to anybody who is trying to stop their business. So government must arm our agencies effectively so that they can tackle the drug menace. However, the scanners is where I have my concern. This is not the first time scanners are being bought for our international airports. They last usually for just 2 to 3 weeks, and then before we know it, they're no longer using the scanners anymore. And I really wonder and I hope people will pay attention to ensure that these scanners, because right now the money's being approved, it's not said when they will be bought and when they will be, it will be maintained. Buying 2 scanners at R1 billion, which is about almost 500 million each, it's necessary. But I want to actually see those scanners, quality scanners, get to those airports, because if you travel locally or even internationally, you know that when you are passing into the boarding lounge, you'll be asked to remove your shoes. And usually in today's world, proper scanners, proper up-to-date scanners don't require removing your shoes. Those scanners can literally see through your what do you call it, your ribs, and ensure that if you're hiding anything inside your shoe heels, you will be detected. So I'm hoping that as it's been approved, those scanners will be bought and people will see how this equipment helps fight the drug menace in Nigeria.
All right, thank you, Devoe. Our next headline comes from Punch. Sokoto Assembly moves to strip Sultan's powers. Lakunle?
Right. Okay. So just before we came on, I was making an allusion to a statement that's somehow gaining grounds, particularly in Africa, about politicians, that everything the politicians touch, they destroy. Right. So many years ago, in Nigeria, some people, we were thinking in our minds as kids, as children, that they were demigods and the occupiers of our traditional stools in various places were part of these people. Even the judges of our courts, we were classified also in this category because we rarely saw them outside. We only once in a while see them. And when a traditional ruler passes, all of us turn our faces away or we prostrate or whatever and all that. Now, the first inkling into what we are now seeing today happened during the military era. In my lifetime, that is, of course, in history, there have been other ones when a sitting head of state suspended 2 first-class traditional rulers of either year for the fact that they visited I think it was Israel without permission, some kind of thing that was I think in 1983 or 1984. And subsequently, from then going forward, we have seen the way governments have toyed with these people every time, that it culminated in the Constituent Assembly of during the Babangida's era of transition to civil rule, the several steps. They had a Constituent Assembly that traditional rulers actually were part of that assembly and were requesting that they wanted a constitutional rule for themselves, that they wanted to be part of the governance of this country. Here we are today. A governor can wake up today and write that a sitting traditional ruler can be removed from office, from the stool, without recourse to anything. And immediately that is done, then, or that when one is to be installed, it is not even the choice of the people of the place anymore. It is the choice of the governor that becomes the traditional ruler. And I think that this ordinarily overrules the idea of who a traditional ruler is. A person who occupies that position should be the choice of the who is going to sit over, not that of the governor or the local government chairman that our law even says that this traditional ruler should report to. So if there's any reason to want to do anything at all, even if you go by the law, it is not the business of the government. It is not even the business of the state assembly, in my opinion. This should be the work of the legislative arm of the local government, because ultimately the powers to administer, or to monitor or to manage or to coordinate the activities of these people sits with the local government chairman. So why is the state assembly taking this power away from the local government chairman? Why are the governors getting interested? What exactly is the reason that they are doing this? Because the traditional ruler is not, in quotes, supportive of the activities of the governor most of the time. And like Devoe always says, that it is us, the people, that we need to take our democracy in our hands. And this guy, so these processes cost money. This process of removing him costs money. So when the next governor comes and does not like what has happened now, he reverses it. It costs money to reverse. It costs money to put back again. So we cause a lot of confusion with this kind of things. So for whatever it is, okay, so what exactly is this point that they're trying to make here? That the roles that the traditional ruler does, they're taking it away from him. They are creating more local authorities a way to reduce his influence and power. Now, this particular one, Abubakar Saad, he's not just traditional ruler, Sultan of Sokoto. On the religious interface, he's the Amir of Nigerian Muslims, so to say, right? That's another debate anyway, but today that's what it is. So it has some connotation outside of Sokoto itself. It affects the whole of the country because if you're doing that to him, Muslims will now rise up and say, hey, governor, you are disgracing our religion, you are this and that becomes another crisis on its own. So I think that the people who are doing this should sit back and for a moment think about the consequences of what they are doing. Like the Yoruba people say that you know where a war starts, but you don't know where or when it will end. And I think that they should think in that perspective before they make these decisions.
Thank you, Lakunle. Let us know your thoughts. The WhatsApp number is 0809 440 981. And you can tweet at Smooth981. You can also post a comment on the live stream up on our YouTube channel. It's Smooth981. Now, let's move on to the next headline. And this one comes from this day. FG bans single-use plastics in MDAs.
Right. For those who don't know, single-use plastics are usually, let's call it utensils or containers that are used to usually buy food that you only use once and then you throw away after. They're not usually microwavable, neither do they maintain the same form when stored. And AKA, we know these single-use plastics as the biggest one, styrofoam, and also nylon bags. Now, the Minister of State for Environment, Adekunle Salako, came out with this from the FEC. Looks like they made a lot of decisions yesterday, whereby he said that the use of this styrofoam and nylons in serving food would be banned from ministries, departments, and agencies. That's the federal government as a whole. Obviously, that will affect Abuja and then every other state where a federal government agency exists. He said it's part of the broader plastic waste management strategy. Now, many of us, at least in Lagos, have some level of familiarity with this policy because Lagos State implemented it a few months, I think last year, whereby due to the biohazard of single-use plastics, that's the styrofoam and nylon, it was banned in Lagos State. Obviously, for those who don't know, single-use plastics, especially styrofoam, is cancerogenous, okay? And government took a hard decision to be able to prevent, because the truth is, many of us, you don't know that many of the pellets of styrofoam and even nylon that get into the food are not digestible. And apart from that, in creating opportunities for cancer within your body, many of them are used and they're not managed well in terms of refuse. So most of them, as you know, even Lagos is still suffering from the blocked drainages from a lot of this styrofoam because people toss them about anyhow. Now, yes, they're cheap, and this is where the problem lies. Yes, it's a good policy based on climate change and environmental elevation. However, if you noticed in Lagos, immediately the styrofoam was banned, a lot of restaurants who were forced not to use them again, their pricing changed. Some restaurants that used to serve food between 500 naira to 1,000 naira, all of a sudden, because they couldn't use the single-use plastics, the styrofoam, their pricing points went to about 5,000, which literally made it impossible for many people to afford. So the Bookers all of a sudden became the premium choice or the only choice for many. And this will happen also for the federal government. So the problem here is Remember, we're still on the issue of minimum wage. If you ban single-use plastics in federal government offices, the problem is, how will the staff themselves cope? Yes, the federal government is paying higher than the states, okay? So they have an advantage, but I'm sure that very soon you will start hearing the pushback from civil servants as to their inability to afford the new price points in food because they can't get it anymore with the usual single-use plastics like the styrofoam or nylons. And what is normally advised is that instead of, if you can't afford the new price points, come with your own plates. So we wait to see the outcome or how this will be implemented. We've seen how it worked in Lagos, and I'm sure it will be a different experience with the federal government.
All right, 0809 440 981. You're listening to Freshly Pressed with the analyst right here. We're looking at the news stories making the headlines. Do stay with us. We'll continue the conversation shortly. More headlines and, of course, more of your thoughts. Stay with us.
Story 6 next, please. Ikeja Electric and the National Electric Regulation Commission.
Look.
Yeah. It's interesting. I like it.
Band A. They've applied the tariff already now, not today.
It says that they should. Okay.
It's Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Zibby here, and the analyst this morning, Lakunle and Devoe. We're looking at the headlines. 7:48 a.m. Let us know your thoughts. 0809 440 981. You can also tweet at Smooth981 as well. We're streaming live on YouTube, so you can catch the live stream, and you can just even post a comment on that live stream as well. Next headline comes from The Nation. Band A, court restrains Ikeja Electric, NERC, from applying new tariff.
Right. So I've always been an advocate of testing our laws, right? That my belief is that when we do this, it helps us to strengthen it, gives us a better understanding of what the laws says. So this plastic company based in Ilupeju, I'm not sure if I should mention the name, have taken the Ikeja Electricity Distribution Company to court, and they filed an ex parte motion to restrain Ikeja Electric from billing them 20 million naira for the month of May only, right? And their argument is that there are certain sections of the law that Ikeja Disco, the Ikeja company, and the National Electricity Regulatory Commission needed to have complied with, right? So that section is section 51. Looking at that section, it gives the right to a consumer to apply for a license to generate its own power, right? And it's NERC that will approve that as long as it's not more than 1 gigabyte, 1 mega, is it 1 megabyte or gigabytes? And then if it is more than that, the company, the individual or organization must show plans to also distribute part of what they generate to other users, something in that regard. So the report didn't say exactly what the plastic company's issues with the billing is, but it suggests that if you look at that section 51 that is quoted in the report, it will either be that the NEC has refused to issue them a license to generate power for themselves, or has refused to renew an existing license that they have, or have refused to allow them to generate and distribute as the law says that they should be able to do. So one of these 3, 4, 5 things, or they've cancelled an existing license. So in one of these 4, 5 things must have been the reason they've gone to court to ask that, look, you can't bill me when the law allows me to generate power for myself and you are refusing me that right. that until you give me that right to, then I'm able to choose whether I want to be your customer or I want to be my own generator myself. So it's interesting to see that people are understanding our laws. They are seeing where they can challenge these laws. They are seeing the advantages that they can take from it. And if this goes all the way to the end, maybe to the Supreme Court sometime, wherever it does, the judge has said that everything should remain as it were, meaning that you can't build them until they hear the substance of it sometime in the future. It's something that everybody needs to look at and monitor as it goes on, so that we understand our laws better and we can see where we can hold um, um, service providers like the distribution companies and the regulatory authority to the duty that they're supposed to perform.
All right, thanks for that, Lakunle. Let's look at the messages. This one is from Cisco Delgado. He says it's meant 1 megawatts. We are eagerly awaiting for that approval because we are ready to provide steady electricity supply to our communities. Abbas says if the courts can stop Ikeja Electric from distributing electricity totally, will even be welcome because since they started this Band A thing, other bands have suffered terribly. We on Band B, which is even close to Band A, barely gets power. It even makes one wonder whether it was right to even have bands. Next headline comes from a Daily Trust. Governors of the 7 states in the Northwest have resolved to work together through robust regional cooperation to solve the seeming intractable security challenges plaguing the zone. Devoe?
Yes. These Northwestern governors, about 7 of them, they met recently in under the hosting city of Castina to discuss majorly. It was under a peace and security summit, which it was called, where there was a high-powered delegation from the federal government, traditional rulers, and other ministers that were in attendance. And literally, they spoke about the issues that had plagued the Northwest and how they would work together to be able to address the issues. And it's always commendable when political entities come together to see how they can integrate. However, we're seeing a lot of this regional movement taking place. The question is, are they just sound bites? Are they just talking? Because the Sultan did make a very pointed statement about having many talk shops and many meetings regarding insecurity within the Northwest within the past decade or two, which simply meant that we've been at this over and over, administration to administration, without effectively getting a result. And that if we're not sincere about it, we will still come back here maybe 2 years after to still be discussing what can we do. So, and unfortunately, I didn't see even though they discussed issues concerning some of the challenges that had to do with insecurity, that had to do with drugs, that had to do with education, that had to do with health. I mean, the Northwest is plagued with a lot of challenges, despite the apparent assets in terms of arable land and solid minerals that are contained there. And we all know that the security architecture is being scattered. Most of the insecurity that we have, the banditry, the kidnapping, a lot of it are just smoke screens for the illegal and illicit extraction of solid minerals that's taking place in those places. These are the issues that need to be brought out to the table. And I mean, I'm tired because there's no point having all these governors and all these high-powered people. Even the vice president was there representing the president, and you can't come out with one solution. I would have felt that, oh, okay, if we're coming together like this, maybe farmer herdsmen and the farmer crisis, let's tackle it with this session. Because you need a consensus among especially the regions, especially the governors, to be able to make a policy move. And we need to get beyond just gathering people together. We bring our securities, we create canopies, marquees, and we say, oh, we're on TV, we're discussing, yet we don't come out with a single position or strategy. But there's no point coming for that meeting and leaving without anything that you can hold and say, oh, this is the direction that we're going to take. Oh, we are no longer going to go this way. We're changing this. I really want to task, and like I said, I'm not talking to the government now, I'm talking to the Nigerian citizens in the Northwest. The Northwest is a blessed side of Nigeria. It's literally the biggest region. You have Katsina, you have Jigawa, you have Kano, you have Kebbi. These are some lands that if you've traveled there yourself, it will shock you as to why these people complain, Sokoto, about not languishing in poverty. So the people of the land need to rise up, hold their leaders accountable in terms of putting on their thinking caps and coming out with effective measures to tackle some of these challenges that they are bedeviled with. They have no excuse for where they are at the moment, because I'm not going to sit here and read another gathering of governors maybe 6 months down the line and no what do you call it? No apparent measure or impact that was taken, but just to come and talk again and to put sound bites out there in the public. So, citizens of the Northwest, it's up to you. The ball is in your courts.
For perspective, just a moment, just to back up what he said. I'm looking at the report of the distribution of the Federal Federal Allocation Account Committee for February 2024, right? By regional distribution. The Northwest is second in the only to the South geopolitical region in terms of FAC receivables.
All right, thanks for that, Lakunle. Thank you, Devoe. Let's look at some of the messages coming through. Wale says, electricity is a product of the cost element that's verifiable. Let's see if there's also a court order that will force generation companies to generate power. If the tariff does not make sense, then Gencos will probably shut down. And when they do, no company will be able to generate at a cost less than what the discos are offering. Dan Okuda says, the National Assembly should enact a bill to constitutionally protect the tenure of our traditional institutions. The governors have ruined the institution. Anthony Francis says, conspiracy is the other name for the power sector. Unless we understand this, we continue to wallow in all this confusion. Next headline from Punch in just under 2 minutes. Gombe empowers 125,729 farmers.
Okay, so quickly, I'll look at it from somehow different perspective. Okay, so this is the fourth phase of COVID-19 action recovery of the economic stimulus. So 4 years down the line, we're still implementing an action recovery economic stimulus for COVID-19, right? No problems. We're giving out agricultural inputs to farmers, no problems. But my problem with the whole of this story really is that the commissioner, all of who are there, keeps referring to this action as poverty alleviation. I think that our leaders, our political office holders, they underrate us and they look down on us too much. How do you stand in front of your people and you proudly say you are alleviating poverty? Do we really understand the meaning of poverty and alleviation? The role of government is not to alleviate poverty. The role of government is to promote prosperity. And if you think that agriculture of all things is you call poverty alleviation, agriculture is supposed to be the key to the wealth of any country at all. Because one, if you can feed yourself, you are the most secured country in the world. Food security is number one on any chain. And what causes food security? Security of life and property, availability of whatever to do to create the food you want to eat. And we're giving 1 bag of fertilizer, this and that, and we are calling agriculture poverty alleviation. I think that we need to review our use of language. We need to review our sense of responsibility as leaders, that we don't see that they are doing people a favor by providing the job, by doing your job as a government. And that is what our leaders need to look at. It's fine to give all these things, but what is the coordinated effort to see that it is sustainable it is incremental. So somebody is going to come again next year. I'm going to repeat the same process. At the end of the day, we will not see the effect at the end of the chain. Many of the Gombe was one of those states that got affected by floods in 2022 and 2023, 2 years. What has been the effect of this kind of giveaways on that flooding? And so we need to see a comprehensive agricultural plan. Agriculture is not what we should be using as poverty alleviation. It should be creating wealth from it.
Thank you, Lakunle. Let's look at a few more messages. Dio. All right, Dio, I'm sorry, but that message is very long. It's like a whole novel. Deji says, even plastics are no longer optional. Recent research has informed that you do not put anything hot inside plastic containers, yet we use them in the microwave. We really need to do our homework rather than rely on others to give us the way forward. Ajayi says, the humiliation of our traditional rulers started with the coming of the colonial masters, and the politicians, seeing themselves as the new masters, also continued in the ugly act, even as Britain continued to guard its monarchy jealously. The irony. That is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your messages. Unfortunately, we can't take them all. And special thanks to our analysts, Lakunle and Devoe, for joining us this morning.
Thank you. I'll send my bill from my mechanic to you later today, President Zibby.
I have a date with my mechanic as well, sometime this week at this rate. All right. Well, that is it for Freshly Pressed. Thank you for being with us. Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast. Thank you.
Bye.